is Joe Benish. I want to welcome everybody to the Downtown Dig, Downtown Looking to Rebound. I own the Ingenuity Company, which is a strategic planning and organizational development firm here in Des Moines. I also was president of the Downtown Chamber in 2014. So I want to turn it over to Sheila and Jennifer to just acknowledge our sponsors and kind of talk a little bit about the program today. So I'm happy that everyone's here with us.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jennifer Chittenden. I'm the Executive Director with the Des Moines Downtown Chamber, and pleased to welcome you to another virtual Downtown Dig session. Downtown Dig was created in 2015 to promote good information about what's happening downtown. Obviously, in the last few months, what's happening downtown is very new to all of us, and I really commend the Dig committee for putting together really great programs that are relevant and timely. I also want to say thank you to the sponsors that make the Downtown Dig series happen. It happens every month, sometimes even more frequently than that. It is presented, the entire series is presented by TerraCon. It's also supported by the City of Des Moines, Office of Economic Development, Mid-American Energy, the Iowa Architectural Foundation, and Ripmuck Properties. And we have another level of supporters that brings this series to you every month. American Marking, Confluence Inc., Epic Studio, Hanson Company, Newman, Tri-City Electric. And typically when we are in person, we have a hospitality sponsor who's there to shake your hands and greet you when you come in the door. This month's hospitality sponsor is Peter Brown Commercial Real Estate. Since he can't be shaking hands, you're probably going to see his logo and see him in other places in the next month. So thank you again to all of our sponsors for making this series possible. And I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Jeff Magner from TerraCon to introduce our panelists.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jennifer. So again, thank you for everybody being on the call today. Normally we would be out and about in the summer doing some tours, socializing, things like that. But we've decided here recently that we're going to hold some of these virtual events that kind of focus on the downtown area. And in particular, today, very interested in hearing from some of our local business owners who have been experiencing probably the more bitter end of what's been going on with COVID here and its impacts that it's been having on the downtown area. So, but we're also hoping to hear about some of the good things that are happening too, and what we as downtown community supporters and residents can do to help with the industry. So I'll do quickly just introduce our speakers today. We have with us Scott Carlson, managing partner with Court Avenue Brewing. He's got 20+ years of experience there with Court Avenue Brewing, and he's also runs a restaurant group, Side of Ranch, which includes other businesses such as Gilroy's in West Des Moines, Americana in the Western Gateway. He's also the inspiration behind Iowa Craft Beer Tent, which is an organization that promotes breweries across the state of Iowa, representing, I believe, nearly 100 different breweries. Scott's moved all over the country as a kid, including living on locations like the East Coast, West Coast, Chicago, London. And he says he's done a lot of dining out in those locations and has had an impact on who it's made him today. But how'd he end up in Des Moines? Ended up going to Drake University, pursued a degree in marketing, and met his future wife, Kristen, there, who asked him to stay, and he did. So next I want to introduce Sid Juwarker. So Sid's a principal at TerraCon. He's got the official title of Client Development Ninja and Environmental Guru. Sid also is the president of the Des Moines Downtown Chamber of Commerce, and he's been involved with Environmental Professionals of Iowa, as well as the Iowa Association of Business and Industry. He's a proud owner of a comedy club, TeeHee. Many of you know of this establishment there on 15th and Walnut. He's basically fulfilling what I believe is his lifelong dream of providing an outlet for local comedic talent and also bringing comedy to the people of Des Moines. Also a proud great grad, and he says he's a lover of all things Des Moines. Also with us today is Tom Zmolek. He's the president of the historic Court Avenue District. and he's a well-known figure and amongst the event planners of things going on in Central Iowa. Tom is a venue manager at the Waterworks Amphitheater, and then also very familiar events throughout the Midwest or throughout Central Iowa here, such as Hinterland Music Festival, 515 Alive, Blue Ribbon Bacon Festival, Lake Effect Okoboji, Whiskey Fest Des Moines, Oktoberfest, always a good time in downtown Des Moines, and Hush Silent Disco. Also on our panel today, Jeff Bruning. Jeff's been in the food and beverage industry for nearly 2 decades. His experience runs deep from being a dishwasher up to current owner of several successful and well-known establishments. His flagship company, Full Court Press, has local interests in many restaurants I'm sure you've been familiar with: Buzzard Billy's, Royal Mile, Red Monk, Iowa Tap Room, Fong's Pizza, Hessian House, El Bait Shop, High Life Lounge, and a new venture in the East Village, Rita's Cantina. So a lot of familiar places there. And finally on our panel, we have Nancy Leo. Nancy's the area director for Schulte Hospitality Group. They own some local hotels, the Renaissance Savery Hotel downtown, and also Hyatt Place Des Moines downtown. Nancy currently serves on the board directors with the Downtown Chamber, and she's the chair of their Total Resource Campaign Sponsorship Committee. Nancy grew up just west of Des Moines here on a family farm, got her bachelor's degree in '96, and has worked in the hospital for 20 years. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to run our panel of questions today. And Joe, I'll just turn it over to you. And thanks for volunteering to do this. And we'll let you go.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I appreciate that. I think all of our panelists are in the room now. We had a little trouble getting one of them to join up. We were working through that. So I believe everybody, including Jeff now, is on the call. Just a couple of things before we start today. I know that you guys have been doing this for a while, a few months now. Please do mute your microphone if you're not currently speaking. Utilize the chat function to ask questions, or for our panelists, I can help moderate those. Or you can also raise your hand or do the various other things that we're all accustomed to here in Zoom to kind of get my attention as the facilitator, and I can get those questions out. There will be a short period of time at the end of the Zoom for question and answers, generally speaking, but we do have a few seed questions to kind of get our panelists going. In addition to that, the session today is being recorded and will be updated and uploaded into the Chamber's YouTube space for folks who want to share it far and wide after the call today. With that in mind, I will just go ahead with the first question. And I think what we'll do is maybe we'll start with Scott and work our way down the list, or whoever wants to jump in or feels it's most appropriate. So in the context of COVID-19 and the recent events and the sequence of things that happened, when did you feel the biggest impact? Was it instantly? When it lasted more than 30 days, 60 days, when some of the protests started recently, just thinking about some of the other things that happened? Just what's been happening recently and what's had the biggest impact on you? Scott, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I would say it was pretty instant. This all occurred right on St. Patrick's Day. So, if you're in the hospitality business, it's a big day for us to kind of kick off, the year. And so when we were unable to open that day, between our 3 restaurants, we had $50,000 worth of perishable items, ready to go for that day and through the weekend that we immediately realized we're not going to be able to sell, right? I guess the second hit was 2 or 3 days later when I called my insurance company and submitted my business interruption insurance to see if it could help pay our bills. And then we were denied 2 days later that it doesn't cover any kind of pandemic. So that was the second big hit. And then, right away we started to worry about our staff, our work family. And they are unbelievably jovial, personable people that are extroverts for the most part. And it was really hard to lose that family so quick. And then, and mixed in with that family are addictive personalities, and so you worry about them if they're not, coming to work and seeing each other and working with each other and asking those questions like you would ask any family, anybody that's close to you. And so we started to work through those things. And then, we had the protests, and here on Court Avenue, we had some damage with some of the riots and folks that were kind of attached themselves to the people who are trying to get voices heard that that need to be heard and should be heard. And then the curfew, right? So we closed our restaurants at 7:30 so people could be home by 9:00. So I remember talking to somebody, pretty quickly after, all of those things occurred, and I remember saying that, COVID plus, the riots plus damage plus curfew equals the demise of small business, right? And so, it's been pretty tragic. But on the bright side, we've learned to adjust. We've learned to do new things. We've learned to rely, differently on the people that are around us, and certainly have the outpouring of, the public. The local public has been tremendous. The amount of support we have gotten that we didn't even expect, was tremendous. So there's still hope for hospitality, still good things that are coming down the pike. But that was kind of, to answer your question, it wasn't one thing, it was a series of things that kind of came along. And as soon as we felt like we could adjust a little bit and try to make something work, something else kind of fell, and so it's been a constant adjustment, of kind of dog paddling, and then you get your head pushed under and you kind of dog paddle back up to get your nose, and then you get pushed back under and you dog paddle back up. So we've just kind of been, bobbing around in the ocean.
Thank you, Scott. Nancy, what about you? How has this impacted you?
Well, obviously it impacted us instantly. As of early April, 80% of the hotels were empty in the entire United States. And the full service hotels are working harder than ever to stay afloat. 80% of our business is corporate travel. So when the corporate traveler stops and the need for corporate meetings, our hotels are empty. June is actually the worst month so far. Of course, we struggled at the beginning of the month with a lot of cancellations due to the riots downtown, losing some of our crew members and such to the west side. But, we're just working together, trying to support each other, and being proactive and making those informed decisions. And, I'm very optimistic that we will come out stronger on the other side and survive.
Tom, Jeff, Sid, thoughts on that?
So I might be having a little lag, but if you guys can hear me, I think we had definitely an impact right off the bat instantly, but some of the things that affect a comedy club and an event space that may not, impact as much on the restaurant side, but I'm sure Nancy's feeling it too, is we had to cancel things that were all the way booked through September, because people don't know if they're still going to have those events and things like that too. So again, I think I'm hung up. So if you guys can hear me, great, but I don't know for sure.
We can hear you, Sid. The video is just
thanks. Yeah, so we've had a lot of corporate events that were booked through September, small events, those kind of things. Nobody feels comfortable, planning and thinking those events are going to come back again. So that was an immediate impact. That was not only immediate right off the bat, but we started to feel things being canceled 6 months out. The other thing about having a comedy club is our talent is not just Des Moines, so we enhance local talent by booking traveling comedians. So even though things may be open here in Des Moines, Illinois is still in lockdown and things like that. So our Chicago comedians, people in Denver, people in other states that already booked gigs, they aren't able to come into town. So we've had to really figure out how we can even book out in advance, because sometimes just putting up a show 3 days before the show date isn't enough to sell tickets or create a buzz around it. So that's been sort of a consideration, different from some of the others we've heard about. So
thank you. So Tom, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So from my end, like the other guys, I was hit right away. I do a very large St. Patrick's Day event in Omaha every year. Obviously that was canceled, just like everything else was on St. Pat's. And then 2 weeks later, I had a large event that I do for the Colorado Epilepsy Foundation cancel. And then the dominoes just kind of started falling, and I'm sure everybody's kind of kept up to all the festivals and events downtown that have been canceling. Obviously, we lost Hinterland and 515 Alive and Nightfall on the River and pretty much our entire concert schedule at Waterworks Park. We're still holding on for one concert and a symphony event out there, but our schedule out there's completely been decimated also. On the brighter side, a few new events have actually popped up because of this, which I think that's a later on question that I can answer, but yeah, so a few things have developed because of the cancellations of other events, and looking forward to getting some of these things in the fall. We're still holding on to Oktoberfest as of right now and Whiskey Fest in November, so hopefully we'll come out on that. On a personal note, I was affected immediately by pledging that I would not shave my beard until we were able to have another concert, and so I'm anxiously awaiting that to happen because it's getting warm out this summer.
Fair enough. Jeff, you're the last guy on this list. So Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, Tom, you got a David Cross thing going right now.
I've been hearing everything from Santa Claus to Jerry Garcia to David Letterman. So
yeah, David Cross with a beard.
For sure.
So of course we were affected immediately with St. Patrick's and those things. You know, the events that are closing, that was kind of an anticipated thing that we were going to have to go through also. We've had some weird, you know, we're kind of spread out, so we had some different things happen for us. We were able to open up the chicken down in West Des Moines or Arilla on the 1st of May, so that helped. So we could send staff that way. We've been able to swish staff around. We were lucky to get the PPP loans, and we're still kind of on the tail end of those as we sort of see the light of the tunnel come. And then we also opened up a new place called Rita's less than 2 weeks ago, and it is going crazy. So, you know, it's some nice things. It's an outdoor focused place, so that's nice. And then we've taken the time to make the outdoor spaces better. And the Dine Out Des Moines, I've got 3 applications in for 3 of our locations. And if you're a restaurateur, you have to be an eternal optimist, or you're screwed. You're screwed anyways sometimes. But I just have the most positive. The worst thing that can happen is we'll have to close. So once you already know that, then you just move forward. So, of course, actually, the worst thing that could happen is not closing. Is all the people that work with us that would be affected. That would be probably the hardest part. But mostly, you know, I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident as the weather has turned. As you know, having rain and having all this stuff for that full month was really rough. And I would tell you, until we get stuff squared away, I have a next door neighbor. She works for Marriott, and I've got kind of a good pipeline into what's happening in the hotel business, and we're affected. I mean, I know Scott would tell you, any event downtown, baseball, through any kind of one-off events or regularly scheduled events, plus Wells Fargo, plus the river stuff Tom does, all those things affect. I believe that at some of our points, we're at 60 to 70% of our clients are out of towners. And sometimes I include suburbs in that, but that really is. I mean, if you're coming from Waukee to downtown, that is not, you could go to Ames just as easily, you know? So, if you don't, you know, we're not in a neighborhood centric place downtown, although a lot of people living down there, and you know, Tim Bolin there, he's doing a great job of getting people excited about coming out to our places, but we really need that critical mass that comes downtown. That's what our business plans are built on, and that's kind of what's hard about the 50% and all these things that we have to do. But what are you going to do? So just keep on going. You know, that's kind of that's our story so far. We are pretty confident. We're feeling pretty good about how things are moving forward. We're having a lot more regular meetings, so instead of panic meetings. So
we'll move to the next question. I want to start with Nancy on this one. So what has been the most challenging aspect of recent events? Is it transitioning to offering different services? Is it reduction in forces? Is it working with landlords, applying for grants, PPP, loans, assistance, EIDL? What has been the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome in the new circumstances?
Yeah, so, you know, a few things really, a lot of rebooking groups, not knowing if a second wave is going to hit. So just trying to, you know, keep the business that we have on the books for future dates, but also, you know, our commitment to clean. So the Marriott entire brand standards have changed. And we've gone digital from check-in to the touch points of, you know, cleaning the elevators every hour and our policies in the fitness center. And it's an evolving process that changed our brand standards and how the employees are trained with the new cleaning initiative, you know, with that and ever changing. And not only that, but with the food and beverage standards, just a lot of new standards and changes in our industry. And then on top of that is, you know, we furloughed our entire sales team across the entire company. So just cutting sales and marketing is a real struggle with that aspect, not knowing when we're going to be able to bring them back. So.
Thank you. Tom, what about you?
Well, I'd say that, you know, since all events and concerts and festivals and stuff have been canceled, we're kind of trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're exploring some options of doing gridded out layouts for concerts and events at Waterworks. We're starting a new drive-in concert series in 2 weeks at the Balloon Fields in Indianola. So we've really had to think outside the box because we know in the concert industry that we're going to be the last thing opened up, and it probably won't be until 2021. And so whatever we can do to, you know, to bring music back to the masses, people are clamoring for something to do and super bummed that they can't see live music. And so we're totally like just trying to reinvent the wheel and get some music to people right now.
Jeff, what about you?
Biggest challenges is, oh, sorry. Des Moines Register's calling. It's the parties that we have booked that people are wanting to know if they can cancel or not. And that's really, it's hard to say, we can't, because everything's actually too far out for us to say you can cancel. We're trying to do rebookings. The PPP was sort of a struggle, but it was only a struggle for a few people in our company. But the understanding of it, to try to broadcast it to everyone and have employees understand the difference between unemployment and commissions and the whole tipping, tipped employee stuff. It was difficult. We had our problems. And it's just really hard. It's really hard to know. It's hard to pick what's really been the biggest struggle going forward. But I think the next few weeks are going to really let us know where we're going to be at for right now. And then, as we get to the fall, it's hard to know what we're going to do. If anything happened, that could be really difficult. So.
Excellent. Scott, what about you?
For us, it's been just trying to take care of the folks that we live with, our kind of a work family, trying to, make sure that they're okay. We figure if we take care of them, they'll eventually, take care of the customers as they return. But trying to make, strike a balance. We've realized that we believe, and I think, Jeff kind of hit on it, the worst thing that can happen is closing. Kind of what is the new normal? So how do we reestablish ourselves? We don't believe we'll get back to where we were, right? We don't think it's going to be that way. Doesn't mean we're not going to get back to some decent business someday, but it's not going to be like it was for quite some time. It probably success won't be what it was. It'll have to be a mix of what's new and what's expected from the customer. So, I've been telling people, if you can build a drive-in somewhere, go do it. If you can get, to-go food moving, get it going. If you can renegotiate the high fees from Grubhub and the Uber Eats, to make it more, actually just to make it profitable at all, for your industry, go for it, because it's just going to be an adjustment on how we interact with our customers and make them happy and fulfill their expectations. Because that's what we always do, right? The customers dictate how we do business. We just have to meet it.
Absolutely. Sid, what about you?
I want to apologize earlier for the video. I got it fixed. I think there's a setting that says touch up my appearance, and when I clicked it, it went into overload this face. But one of the biggest challenges, I guess, is like Scott mentioned it, and Tom's going to deal with this too, is compromising on some of the quality aspects of live entertainment. A comedy show is fun because you're sitting next to people, there's an atmosphere in the room, and everyone's laughing at the same time. It's like watching a movie at home on Netflix versus watching it in a theater. And we've had to transition somehow into making sure that our local comedians have shows. So we've been doing streaming things on Zoom. A lot of companies have invited us to do Zoom events for their corporate sort of Friday happy hours and stuff like that. And to just basically say, oh, it's not the same, we don't want to do that, it's kind of impossible in this day and age. So we've been doing online streaming, Zoom comedy, which has its own challenges and its own thing. But the hard part to sort of figure out is when everything returns to normal, is there still going to be an aspect of that requirement where people are going to feel, hey, we were able to do this at home before. Maybe it wasn't as good as sitting in the comedy theater or an entertainment venue or a concert venue, but being able to do it in pajamas, I'm kind of going to take, I'll take the quality down a notch to be able to not leave my house. So there is going to be a mentality shift there for some people who think, hey, we don't really need to go see live entertainment in the way it used to be. And that's going to be sort of a challenge for, people who got used to, like Netflix basically changed people's needs on wanting to watch movies and going to theaters and doing other stuff. Or I think that's going to be sort of something we're going to have to deal with live entertainment venues too, with people thinking, hey, it was kind of fun sitting on my couch doing it. So.
Excellent. Next question, and this is a question I've been thinking about too with regard to my business and some of the things that moving forward might change. But Sid, let's maybe stay with you on this one. What lasting impact do you think this will have? So what changes have been made that have been positive, or things that maybe weren't acceptable before, like some of the distributed office stuff and other things that we're doing differently now that we wouldn't have thought as maybe the norm 2.5 months ago, but now could be a positive change that we could see for businesses moving forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And everything I just mentioned, Briar, as a challenge is also a positive. We have the ability to take a product, which for my case, it's comedy. For Tom's, it might be music or other entertainment things, to people who would have otherwise never had a chance to see it. And I look at it from a standpoint of a comedy club that's built to support local Des Moines and Iowa comedians. If you say we're in we've done some Zoom calls, some chamber stuff. We've done comedy shows where we had 200 people join in on a happy hour. These are people that wouldn't have traveled to Des Moines. They were from some of the outskirts of Des Moines for a different chamber in a different town, who are now have access and have heard local comedians, local artists, which they would have never otherwise heard before or taken the time to come to a venue. So to me, switching to some elements of providing entertainment options to an online platform, which otherwise would have just been like crazy to even imagine, is sort of become the norm now. And I think as far as exposure goes for local artists, I'm speaking here altruistically for the artists, it's bringing them into homes, man, and in front of people they may have never had a chance to perform in front of before. So I think that's infinitely cool. So, and the more people see cool things and they realize, hey, there's amazing talent here in Des Moines, amazing talent in Iowa, it's more chance that they're going to leave their homes and come to venues such as mine. So I think it's a positive effect for everybody. And when they come to my show, they got to go eat at, you know, Scott's and Jeff's places, and it's just, then you got to stay overnight at Nancy's because they're far out of town. So I guess it just all takes care of each other. So.
What about you?
So I agree with Sid, although, you know, there's nothing like experiencing a live concert. You really can't sit at home and do that. And that on a entertainment basis, they've been broadcasting, you know, live concerts for quite some time. But I really feel, like Sid said, that there can be some more national exposure for local talent via the outlets that we've had. We have some local musicians here that started a television channel, DSM TV, not television, I guess, but internet channel, that have been featuring all sorts of local live talent over the course of the last 3 months. And they're actually going to be doing a live broadcast from our some select shows from our drive-in concert series in Indianola that I think are going to give some of these local musicians exposure that they wouldn't have. And we see lots of people on this channel that are, you know, from back in my day at Iowa State, and when I had peoples in Ames, we had a couple of days where we had artists from there and had 700-800 people watching it, you know, from all around the United States that would never have obviously been able to come to see a show here in Des Moines. So I think it's some camaraderie there, people kind of coming together and joining in and watching together. But in the long run, you know, there's nothing like going to a concert live in person. So I'm, you know, hoping that the industry rebounds and we get to join arms and see some music together at some point here.
And get him to shave his beard when the concerts start back up.
What's that?
So we have to get you to shave your beard when concerts start.
That'll be live on DSM TV for sure.
Scott Carlson, you're up next.
I'm just looking forward to eating virtually and drinking virtually and making money. I like Sid's idea. No, we are certainly touching our customers and interacting with them different than we ever have. And I think I know we have re-engaged them in a different way. And we've certainly made connections, and we've certainly, you know, kind of felt the love and support of our community. And I think as we get busy with lives, you know, we start to, you know, just get busy being busy. And so we've kind of reset ourselves kind of on what we expect is success. And, you know, I drove, we were doing some delivery lunches, and I drove 15 miles each 30 miles to deliver 6 sandwiches at $11 a sandwich. And I was excited to do it, right? Because I wanted to see somebody. I wanted to bring them something that they could eat, you know, and that they appreciated the meal, even though it cost me so much more, than to bring those sandwiches that I made. But it's just kind of reset us to kind of, you know, how do we treat each other more compassionately? How do we treat each other with more with more appreciation? So, you know, we've come along a long way, you know, over this kind of sad time of all the things that are occurring around us, and realize that, you know, we're still pretty fortunate to be here in Des Moines, Iowa, and to be in the Midwest, where people really do have sensitivity to each other and want to help where they can. So we're going to be all right. We're going to make it. You know, we're going to see how we reemerge, but we're going to adjust to whatever they say.
Thank you, Scott. Nancy, what are your thoughts?
Say goodbye to breakfast buffet and room service. No, you know, moving forward, you know, definitely, there's definitely a big focus on the cleaner approach. So just being in the travel industry, even if you're flying, it's the cleanest I've ever seen it. From hotels to traveling, from the hotel shuttles to the airlines to the airports, but also just more up to date on technology. There's more technology being implemented that will continue to implement it. And, you know, there's going to be there's no human interaction at check-in. your keys on your phone and everything. A lot of it is done remotely through the technology, you know, and it's updating our equipment. So it's more diverse to the travelers today of what they want. So that's a positive change too. We have hotels in the Chicago area that are fully converted over with hospital beds, and there is no human interaction at all. So just a quicker check-in time and a quicker response because everything's done, you know, through computers or their phones, and the hotels will embrace the more digital aspect in the day-to-day operations.
Thank you. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I was been talking about the when OPEC was in crisis and they had to figure out how to make money on $20 a barrel, and then everyone gave them a hard time when they started making 100 or had $120 a barrel. You know, you're making so much money, but they figured out how to make it then. And also to touch on what Nancy just said, that the technology boom and all this has propelled us way into the future faster than we were planning to even go there or even think that we were going to be there. A lot of online ordering, new POS systems. I thought going through 2008, I thought that we were recession proof. I'm like, oh my God, this whole thing's going to house of cards. And we did great during that time. In fact, we did better. And so I always felt like this was there's what could possibly happen. Well, now I know what could possibly happen. So that's going to be on everyone's mind with breakfast buffets and cleanliness in our places, the things that opportunities we have. But all I can say is I'm kind of with Tom too, is it'll change, but it has to. This is what people are meant to socialize. People are meant to be out. And I have full faith that I'm in an industry that has been around for thousands of years and in some way, shape, or form, and it'll continue into the future. And there'll be a time. I was thinking about it. The close of 2000, the 2000s I was happy to see them go away. It was just a really long time. And now that I see when I get to the end of the 2010s, I'm hopeful that'll be like, wow, what a decade. Except for that first little bit, that sucked. You know, I think perspective, we're right on top of it, and everyone, I get it, is really nervous, but perspective will change this whole thing. And even the time since we started to now, it's way more in a better spot. Even after the protests and all the things that happened, I just think people are more connected, as Scott said. People are more connected to the humanity. You know, I went past a baseball practice at Roosevelt the other day and actually marveled that they're having practice, not just go past it like I would have and not even paid attention, because they actually get to go practice now and they have a season coming. So that's where I'm at.
Excellent. Next question. Generally speaking, in your opinion, do you feel that people will return to old habits fairly quickly, or do you think that this has changed us permanently as it relates to COVID-19, as it relates to some of the protests and things that are happening downtown regarding the protests, or other things that you think that maybe were unforeseen as a result of some of the events of the last 2 months, changes in attitude, changes in culture? Do you think people are going to go back to the way things were, or do you think we're forever changed, and how? Maybe we'll start this one with Sid.
Well, I think as far as change that's permanent, I believe that generally people's attitudes, as Jeff and Tom and Scott and Nancy have mentioned before, have changed as far as learning the importance of interpersonal connection. We're seeing people be much, much nicer to service industry folk. They're being much nicer to bartenders and servers at our establishment, because it's like, oh, here's a person, I want to talk to you. They're tipping better. They're willing to pay more for live entertainment, whereas before a $10 ticket price was crazy for some people in Des Moines, are willing to pay $20 just to get out and do something. I think those certain attitudes as things we used to take for granted before, which is getting out of your house and interacting with people and being able to be entertained or go somewhere and eat, which used to just be like an afterthought, like I'm gonna go sit down and have dinner, is now moving into the conscious mind of, hey, this is different than just sitting at home and making something. So it's going back to that, a night out is really a night out. And it's kind of cool when people used to like see it as differently and dressed up differently and acted differently. And it's just sort of, it's cool to watch. And I think that sort of attitude when people are out away from home and enjoying themselves is going to sort of remain. And at least I hope it does. So that's one positive I've seen, and I hope that stays permanent. So.
Scott, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Did you say Scott?
Yep, Scott, sorry.
Sorry about that. I think there's some permanent change. I don't think business as usual will be as business as usual. I think we're going to get back to being out and about and being social people, because that's who we are and what we're made of. But I think it's been long enough, and it's going to continue to be long enough where you're going to have to come back differently. You cannot come back the same way you once were. So I think it's going to be adjusting to, those changes. And if you can mentally and get your staff ready and get your, business partners ready and the people that are around you that support you ready to kind of move with that change and kind of readapt. And if you can survive it, if you can actually get to the other end of the rainbow, then I think we'll be okay. I just don't know exactly how to get there and how to survive long enough to make it to that other side. But people will adapt. One of the things I talked to the governor's task force and the partnership and, the city of Des Moines and Polk County and the National Restaurant Association, the Iowa Restaurant Association is, we need to flatten the curve just like we did with COVID for small business. If we lose a bunch of small businesses in the next 6 months, it's really difficult for them to backfill and come back. If you see a bunch of dark corners or dark windows on a street, it's really hard to be the first one to come in and refill and come back and be a restaurant or bar or comedy club or concert venue. But if we can help small businesses survive 18 months, 12 months, 24 months, they still may close, right? They still may not make it. But if we can kind of push that curve down so they can survive longer and see more potential, then as places start to close over time, the backfill rate is much more successful because they see other restaurants kind of rebounding, at least in the time being. So I'm optimistic that our industry will always be here. The sad part is who the players may not be the same ones you see today, or some of the places may not be the ones you see today. And that's hard. That's hard because that's somebody's dream, somebody's life, somebody's savings, somebody's, complete blood, sweat, and equity in every one of those small businesses you see out and about. So we're going to get there. We're a resilient place. We're hardworking Midwestern people. So we're going to make it, as long as we can. It's just going to be a really tough run.
Yeah, just to build a little bit on what Scott's saying, as a consultant, this is really difficult because consultants, I'm sure a lot of we were out and about in the community and we get to see people. My office the joke was I was over at Caribou. That was my annex, but that's a real thing. So some of the resultant of this is that we don't get to be as visible and people aren't as willing to have external consultants and things come into their office. So, adapting to things like Zoom and making sure that we are visible and we are still able to help the organizations that we work with. That's a big thing. So I'm hopeful that a lot of folks who do what I do or something similar to what I do are able to adapt and kind of make sure, because that is money out of the economy. That is those people, they'll just kind of drift into the ether if they don't get supported or are able to connect with people. So that's an important consideration. Tom, you're up next.
Sure. So I think I'd like to touch a little bit about the protests since we haven't chatted about that at all. And I think that, we're going to see some definite positive permanent changes in the racial divide here. Being the president of the court district, I was kind of on the front lines of all the damage that happened down here that night. I got the call at about 1 o'clock in the morning from the police department that I probably should get down to the street and see what was going on. And so, unfortunately I witnessed all of the damage and the windows being broken out and all the violence that was happening from that. And I remember I called Scott Carlson at probably 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning to tell him that one of his huge windows had been broken out. So by the way, if you ever call Scott at 4 a.m, he will answer his phone. So,
We'll post the phone number in the chat for everybody.
but subsequently after that, I felt like that there was something wrong that I wasn't getting, because we were all very angry at the protesters that night and the following day. And so I took to the streets, and I went to the protests, and then I followed the groups around as they marched through downtown from the courthouse to the Capitol and the courthouse to the Capitol. And I found that I came to the realization that it wasn't the protesters that had caused any of the damage to any of our businesses. The protesters had a very respectful and concise message that they were sending, and it was the radical after party people that just wanted to create damage. And so it changed me inside how I felt about this by participating in the discussion instead of just being angry about it. I actually I was on a city council work session the next Monday after all the damage happened down here on Saturday, and they asked me to speak at the end, and there was about 40 city employees on the Zoom call, and I asked every one of them to drive through the court district if they could in the next couple of days, because every business in the court district was boarded up, and 90% of the businesses on Court Avenue had windows broken out or damaged to their businesses, or they were graffitied or something. And I said, you guys just drive through here and look around, because if we don't get some help downtown, if we don't get some sort of relief from what's been going on, this is the long term of downtown Des Moines. You're going to see boarded up stores and boarded up restaurants. And if we don't get some relief down here, if we don't get some help, that's what Des Moines is going to become. And I don't think any of you want that. So please drive through and witness it right now.
Thank you for that. Jeff?
Well, I feel that nature is always goes back to homeostasis, that wants to go back to the way things are, were that there's of course going to be changes that we are going to have moving forward, but people are social, and there's no way around that. And I don't disagree with Tom's sentiments just now, or Scott's, that it doesn't look good to invite people down to a street where you're one of two businesses open. So I hope that folks will get help to try to keep it going. But I guess our plans as a company are to keep moving forward, and do our best. We're realistic to know that one of our places may not make it. What's crazy is that we're opening. I mean, I turned 50 in July and I'm done. I'm not doing any more places. But we have 3 opening right now. We just had Rita's Cantina open. We have the basement of the Iowa Tap Room, which will be opening here next Friday. And then in the Drake neighborhood, we'll be opening up Crazy Horse late July. And it's crazy to even think, but actually the Crazy Horse has been great. We don't have a staff. We pushed back our lease till September. Everything's paid for. We didn't have a loan. We don't have any ongoing bills. So it's just like a brand new restaurant waiting to be opened, unwrapped and opened. When I guess the college is coming back a week early is what I'm hearing, and things like that. We'll see how it goes. So far, so good. Our first one's good, but it's a positive feel to have that happen. It'd be a lot worse if we would open and heard crickets, So I feel pretty positive in that way, that regard, that we can see things come back. They're going to have to come back different. What I'm concerned about the most is companies downtown are seeing that working from home isn't such a bad idea. I think commercial real estate is going to be hit hard. I think it's tough for the hotels to kind of get it back together to where they're, talking about we need to build more hotels, and the travel, having people come out to travel to stay in those hotels and all those things. Those are the things in the events are the things that really make downtown work. And if we have less people coming down to work, we have less people wanting to open up shop and all that. It is going to have a lasting impact that way. But at the end of the day, we're open for business and we're doing our best and we're going to see what we can do. And I'm pretty hopeful so far what I've seen as things progress from St. Patrick's Day to today. Every week, every day is a little bit more positive. There were some times that it did take some steps back, especially with the protests. But they had, I think I'm with Tom. I think that there's going to be some positive change with that too. Very hopeful for that. That's going to be another good thing that Des Moines has stepped up and done right. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Jeff. Nancy.
To be honest, I get really nervous about people jumping back into their old habits, and especially as the restrictions being lifted, in our county and our state. And you see a lot of people not social distancing and, want to go back to normal. And I feel like when I'm out, there's places that already look like they're back to normal. So that makes me nervous. But as long as we move, I'm going to kind of combine that last question, Joe, because I do have to jump on a call at 4, but moving forward in a safe way. One of the things that I've noticed is I see less people out that have a cough or are sick. I'm used to seeing people coming to work if they're sick because they need the money, and I feel like more people are staying home. When I travel, I feel like everybody around me is not sick. So I think that's a very positive thing is people, if they're sick, they're staying home. But moving forward in a safe way, for us being, not only a hotel, but we're an event venue. So we have a lot of weddings coming up, a lot of brides that want to get married, and we abide by all the state and local guidelines and the CDC guidelines. And, people need to respect and social distance so the second wave doesn't rebound, and wear their masks. And if they're not feeling well, that, they need to stay home. So, just a lot of pieces as you deal with a lot of travelers in and out of our state and our county traveling. But it does make me nervous moving forward in a safe way, because you have to trust that everybody's going to abide by the rules. So, but very optimistic, just like Scott said, and I know we'll come out of this ahead, but I think it's just going to be a long process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we just got a couple minutes left, and I want to be fair with everybody's time, but I want to thank our panelists for participating today. I want to thank Jennifer and Sheila and everyone at the Chamber and the DIG Committee for putting this together. My name is Joe Benish. I'll put my contact information in the chat room. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you want to have a coffee when we get back to that, or a virtual coffee, or anything. I'd love to connect with you. But I want to express my appreciation for allowing me to moderate today. I think we had a really great discussion, and again, the video will be available the next couple of days in the YouTube channel. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff, Sheila, and Jennifer to kind of take us home. So thank you again for being here today.
Thanks, Joe. I do want to express appreciation here to our speakers. Enjoyed listening to, though it may seem like a gloomy, dark message, I do feel that there is hope for the future. We've got, 9 out of 10 people I know are chomping at the bit to get back out and socialize. I think it was Jeff that said it's human nature. It's just how do we go about doing it in a safe manner or a safe way. So I think that's one of the big challenges going forward. I wanted to also, again, thank our sponsors for the event, and also appreciate everybody taking the time today to join us on this event. As Joe mentioned, we'll have this posted here later if you're interested in catching the video or weren't able to see it. So with that, I don't have anything else further to say. Sheila, did you have any closing words or comments?
Sure. I started talking and didn't realize I was on mute, so user error there, sorry. What are you laughing about, Sid? I just want to say thank you. Joe has been awesome to do these for us, and he is so professional and so talented at this. None of you even know this, but we had somebody that tried to Zoom bomb us, and he headed it off. So he's just really he's sharp at this, awesome. And we really appreciate that he helps us get through these things. There's just kind of one thing that I just wanted to wrap up in this today. Thank you to all of the panelists, obviously, for taking the time to do this. But, everybody, all of us have been through just a great deal of change in the past 3 months, and everybody in so many different ways. But the one thing that we all do have in common, without question, is that we love Des Moines and we love our downtown and we love our downtown businesses. And that's why we're doing these things. That's why you guys show up. That's why you're willing to share this information, because we are all just doing everything we can to get through this, and we're here to support each other. So thank you everyone for joining and participating.